It's a humongous news day in the world of Magic the Gathering. Not only do we have an incoming Magic ban, but Hasbro has just declared their revenues are down by 15%. And if that wasn't enough, there are game stores that are literally fire sailing Commander Masters before it's even released.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The Magic Historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends. I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for a humongous, enormous, insane installment of Mega Magic News. I got my notes. We got a whole bunch of different subjects to talk about. There's the stuff I mentioned right at the beginning of the video, but there's also Lord of the Rings being evergreen, some interesting spikes that are happening in the Magic market. We have an absolutely cram-packed day. So let's start out by talking about the Commander Masters situation, because this is genuinely wild. You don't normally see this sort of thing. We had Wizards already going out with Commander Masters and going, you know what, let's tweak the sales on Amazon, let's drop the rates. And you had stores coming out and shaking their fists while more stores just decided, you know what, forget it. It's a race to the bottom. Let's start running. So there are literally fire sales being held by game stores, big and small, for the Commander Master collector boosters, which is absolutely wild because this is already ongoing. By the time you see this video, it is going to technically have been the Commander Masters release, but this was ongoing, and today is the initial hype day for Commander Masters. Fire sailing, all that stuff is supposed to happen at least a couple weeks down the road. Normally, when it comes to LGSs, the first week before Target and Walmart and everybody can get their hands on it, that's the mega juice week where it's like, yo, let's get the products out the door. Let's crack for singles. Let's do all that stuff. But they're already looking at it going, okay, we got to get out from under this product. That is, it's insane, honestly. It's something that you don't normally see with Magic sets, and it's a very bad sign. On the upside, it's specifically because Commander Masters is an overpriced reprint set. So going forwards, this shouldn't be happening with stuff like Wilds of Eldraine. That set should perform relatively normally. Now, speaking of sets performance, I want to talk about the Lord of the Ring evergreen situation. If you showed up last night for the live stream, you know we talked about it in depth, and I have re-uploaded that live stream over on my Hatcher channel. So if you want to hear more in-depth thoughts on what's going on with this evergreen situation, you can hear that there. I'll leave it linked at the end of the video. But the really short idea behind this is they were doing an interview with the president of Hasbro, and he was talking specifically about Lord of the Rings, and he referenced it essentially as a long tail evergreen product. And that wording is a very strange thing to hear about a Magic product. Up until now, we've only heard the word evergreen in reference to Magic mechanics. So for example, evergreen mechanics, first strike, flying, trample, something you can expect to see in every set. It's always around. Evergreen, like the trees. It's a weird way of talking about things. It's like, well, this isn't a deciduous tree product. And you're like, okay then. But anyways, what he's saying is that for the next 6 to 7 months, bare minimum, they expect the Lord of the Rings to be boosting up their prices. But they're going to be printing this for years, it looks like. Like when they say evergreen, think about Modern Horizons 2. Modern Horizons 2 has been ubiquitous. It's everywhere. In fact, as far as I understand, they're doing another Modern Horizons 2 print release at like the end of this year. So it's like been what, 2 years since that set came out? And they're still printing it. Come on, Ragavan, make that cheddar, right? So same concept for Lord of the Rings. But it's wild because Lord of the Rings right now is already their second best selling set. And at the same time, it also costs them more to make it. About 20% of the profits that they're making are being eaten up by the IP from what I can glean from the numbers. I'm not 100% sure that that's accurate, but it looks like Wizards has to pay 20% off the top to keep going with this. But unlike other properties, for example, like the Warhammer decks or The Walking Dead, Wizards of the Coast doesn't have the ability to just remake those cards whenever they feel like it. But it looks like they made one of two different kinds of deals with the Lord of the Rings people. They either said, hey, we want an open license to print this for as long as we want, or we want something written in the contract where we can pay you an additional fee to be able to do it again. So it's one or the other, and Wizards is very, very heavily leaning on Lord of the Rings. Part of the reason this is being talked about a long tail means it just lasts a long time. Its tail doesn't disappear. It's trailing like a comet through the sky. So the idea of Lord of the Rings being a long tail, 6 to 7 months at least, means they're expecting this to buoy everything up for the rest of the year, right? We're looking at the Q2 earnings, which incidentally, when we get to it, are down by about 15%, right? But that doesn't include the Lord of the Rings stuff. The Lord of the Rings stuff is mostly like third quarter action, and it's going to cause a big boost to their bottom line there. Now, what this means overall is that Lord of the Rings is going to be everywhere. The single prices are probably going to come tumbling right down, with the exception of a few specific cards that are actually making big waves. And funnily enough, that actually ties into the upcoming Magic ban. So we've got a Magic ban that's coming in a few days. And this is done under the new auspices of Wizards of the Coast, where they've said, okay, our bannings, we're going to change fundamentally how we do them. But nobody really knows what's going on with these bannings, because Wizards of the Coast basically came out and said, we're changing the standard format and we're increasing the format by 50%. So it was a 2-year format, now it's a 3-year format. But they didn't give us any updates on what was going to happen with bannings, format management, all of that. They were like, we got a lot of great details and we're definitely going to tell them to you, but it totally came across as a knee-jerk reaction to them going, we have a ton of standard product. It's not selling well enough. We've got a lot of units to shift. How do we shift this stuff? It's only good for standard. And then they went, make standard 50% longer. So you have that as a knee-jerk reaction, and then they go, well, that's going to require different format management and different bannings. And all right, so they come up with this, well, we're going to do bannings on a set dates kind of thing. So we're looking at stepping into that new world, and it's difficult to tell what Wizards is going to do to start with. I feel like they're going to take a pretty light touch. I tell you what they won't be doing. They won't be touching the actual One Ring or Orcish Bowmasters. So if you were hoping that those were going to get the ban hammer, forget it, right? Wizards of the Coast has just said Lord of the Rings is going to be an evergreen product. They plan to blast it for the whole rest of the year and into the next year. There is zero chance that they are going to ban the most valuable cards from that set, right? Especially when they have a bunch of like serialized rings that haven't been picked out, and that's still the lottery aspect for the collector boosters. It's wild. They're going to be printing collector boosters like 6 months down the road and just changing it to say, well, you can't get the One Ring on it, right? And that's it. That's the only change they're going to make. So that is definitely precluding them from being on the ban list as far as I'm concerned. I don't actually have any really obvious targets in terms of the bannings. I'm more interested historically as how this new banning method is going to play out, and whether it's actually going to fix problems or if it's just another slap a band-aid on it, hope it stops the leak kind of scenario, right? That's what Wizards is known for in this era. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the 15% decline in Hasbro revenue, because obviously that's a big deal. We all know a lot of Hasbro's money comes from Magic the Gathering. If you break it down, the last time I saw the numbers, it was roughly about 1/3 of all the profits that Hasbro makes comes from Magic the Gathering. So when they're talking about their earnings and everything like that, Magic the Gathering gets brought up a lot. This time around, there is some restructuring going on at Hasbro. With the whole Magic 30 debacle, they didn't make nearly as much money. They're struggling in other areas, so they're changing their workforce overall. They declared they were getting rid of 15% of the workforce. But on top of that, it looks like they're actually also selling off their film division. So making stuff like the G.I. Joe movies and all that, it looks like that might be in somebody else's hands altogether. And I do wonder what that really means for the Netflix show, because I have heard nothing about the Netflix show. But the 15% decrease in revenue, they're literally coming out and saying, well, look, okay, year over year, if you compare this quarter to the previous quarter from the last year, we're down by 15%. But last year, we had 4 sets in this quarter. And this year, we only have 3 sets in this quarter. And you're like, yeah, but you also sell like millions of supplemental products and everything. No, 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 no. Just compare 4 sets to 3 sets. That's the only metric you need. Everything's going to be gangbusters going forwards. Lord of the Rings is going to be super baller. I mean, on one hand, clearly Hasbro has communicated a message to the market that the market likes hearing, because Hasbro's stock price has actually been upgraded by a bunch of financial analysts. So it's interesting to see like when you look at the documents, I guess it's for people who don't know Magic and they see 4 sets, 3 sets, and they're like, wait, you got rid of 25% of the sets, but you only have a 15% reduction? Wow, that's great! And it's like, no, you have no idea. You have no idea how bad this is. They release all kinds of side products and stuff, and they're just totally like, cough, cough, Magic 30 never happened, right? Now, let's talk about something that's related to Magic 30, but on the opposite side. Remember how Magic 30 was a complete dumpster fire and hosebaggery? I wish they had never done that to us as their emblem of Magic's 30th anniversary, because it has tainted things. And if they had just stuck to this concept we're about to talk about, let me put something up on the screen. Take a look at this black Secret Lair special packaging. This is a special convention edition Secret Lair card. Now, if Wizards had stuck to doing things like this would be an absolutely baller 30th celebration, because what these are freely given out. They go around to people, for example, Magic Con Barcelona, or let's say Gen Con, something like that. They walk up to people and they just put these on the table in front of them. This is yours now. What is it? It's a super limited edition, less than 300 copies of it in the world, Secret Lair card. So, this one in particular is Merfolk of the Pearl Trident. We saw them already do this with Lord of the Pit. I'm getting them switched up, right? Because I want them to combine together. So, these are both cards from the original Magic set. This is a great way to harken back to the original days of Magic. This is also a really cool hype thing to just give out to people, right? Yo, you came to this event, here you go, celebrate it. And apparently they're handing them out just willy-nilly, because it's not just going to Magic players. One of the posts about this was actually somebody going, yo, I don't play Magic, I was given this thing, what is it? And people are going crazy in the comments, whoa, this is insane, what you got? And he wasn't the only one, because somebody's actually already posted it up on eBay. So if you want to see what it looks like, this is the one card that's inside that package. Now, admittedly, it is a 1 blue, 1/1 Merfolk, which is complete garbage. It is trash by today's standards. But once upon a time, you could play this guy, play a second turn Lord of Atlantis, all of a sudden that Merfolk of the Pearl Trident is now a 2/2 Island Walker, and you got that for 1 mana. So you're way ahead of the curve in that regard. So once upon a time, a first turn Merfolk of the Pearl Trident wasn't actually a terrible play. I remember kind of basing my theory of 2/2 Grizzly Bear action on this. It's like, wait a minute, you put it the Merfolk of the Pearl Trident, and then you put a Lord of Atlantis. The Lord of Atlantis is a Grizzly Bear. It's 2/2 for 2. That makes this 1 cast guy a 2/2 for 1. What value? So I hopped all over that. For me, seeing this coming out this way is really, really sweet. And another fun thing that's really sweet is huge narrative changes are coming to Magic the Gathering. And we're being told by Mark Rosewater that the sets that are coming up soon are actually going to do things that could never be done in Magic because of the shift that they had. And if you don't know what I mean by that, the shift from Planeswalkers basically being the end-all, be-all, we're always following Planeswalkers to now Planeswalkers are a rarity. We're going to get maybe 1%. Most Planeswalkers have been desparked, and there are now Omen Paths that allow people to traverse from world to world to world. So what's probably going to happen is we're going to get to visit worlds we'd never get to go back to in the past. So how it worked was, if a set doesn't sell well enough, we never get to go back to that world. That's why Kamigawa didn't come back until they could turn it into a cyber world. The Kamigawa was one of the worst selling sets of all time in Magic, and we were told we were never going back. Lorwyn's in the same boat, where it just didn't sell well, so automatically world get rubber stamped failure. But that's not the case. These worlds can be really cool. Just because the set that was designed for them wasn't, doesn't mean the world isn't. So it looks like going forwards, we're going to have this setup where we could actually traverse from world to world to world. So instead of being like, no, we can't have a set where we go to Lorwyn because Lorwyn didn't do well enough and it's all going to be based in Lorwyn, we can have a set that's actually about an adventure through 5 different planes, or you could spend most of your time on a big plane that matters, but hop over to another plane. We can have all this scene shifting, and it's going to lead to way more multiverse spanning craziness. I love the idea. I always felt like Planeswalkers never took advantage of the fact that they can go all over the place and just kind of stuck where they needed to be, not really utilizing their powers. But Omen Pass mean any cool character you want, you can take them wherever you want, right? And I suspect this is also how Wizards is going to bring things like Wild West worlds and other out there concepts in, just kind of like Omen Path it up over there, right? We'll kind of wander in. Instead of going full tilt and going, we're just going to do a full world, it allows them to experiment with concepts without diving too deep into it and hosing it. Now, I want to talk about a card spike for an ancient card I love, Soul Devi Digger. This card is super funky. I'll put it up on the screen. 2 casting cost artifact. It costs 2 mana. You take the top card of your your graveyard, put it on the bottom of your library. I used this back in the day to basically wait my opponents out. I got all kinds of control magic. I'm gonna hose you and keep putting the counters back in my deck. It was brutal. But this thing's back in the news. And actually, on a side historical note, if you guys didn't know this, when you're playing with cards like Soul Devi Digger that care about the top card of your graveyard, you have to actually keep your graveyard in the order that the cards went into it. That's old school Magic. In the earliest days of Magic, you were not allowed to rearrange the cards in your graveyard. Nowadays, you're allowed to shift them to whatever you want. That way you can move cards that matter. You're going to flash back to the top of the pile. But whenever there's a card that cares about graveyard order, everybody in the game has to actually maintain graveyard order, even your opponents. Although, I mean, who cares? You're really going to make them when you have a Digger out. Regardless, why is this Digger spiking? Doctor Who, River Song. She lets you draw off the bottom of your library. So Soul Devi Digger says, make the top card of your graveyard the next card you draw. That is absolutely dirty, and it's caused Soul Devi Digger to have like an 800% price spike because it's actually back in the sun being loved. And I have a special place in my heart for this card. I thought it would be fun to end off with that. So thanks for coming and hanging out, my friends. Tonight we're going to be doing an epic live stream where you can try and stump me by picking cards from the Arabian Nights set. It's all the way back, the first expansion ever made in Magic. You show up to the live stream, you name cards, I'll tell you what they do. We'll see if I'm right. We did it with Alpha Beta Unlimited, and it was a load of fun. So up on the screen, I'm going to leave a link to the live stream about the Lord of the Rings Evergreen situation, and I'm going to leave a link up to the live stream where we tried to stump me with the Alpha Beta Unlimited. It's a fantastic concept. So come on, let's spend some more time together. In the meantime, thank you to all my patrons for supporting my channel, and I will see you all next time.